When you think about Italy, what comes to mind? Well, for thousands of years, its entire story, it's really been shaped by this one fundamental, incredibly dramatic tension. And today, we're going to dive right into that conflict.
So let me ask you this. What if a country's entire history was just this constant, epic battle between unity on one side and complete division on the other? I mean, just imagine a place that builds one of the greatest empires the world has ever seen, only to have it completely shatter into 1,000 tiny pieces. And then it spends the next 1,500 years just trying to put itself back together again.
Well, for Italy, this isn't some thought experiment. It's real. It's their story. You see, for most of its history, the people living on that peninsula, they achieved absolutely incredible things. But here's the catch. They did it not as one unified nation, but as a whole bunch of separate, competing powers. This cycle, this constant back and forth between unity and fragmentation, that is the key. It's the key to understanding everything about Italy.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. The story of that first epic period of unity, well, it begins, of course, with one name: Rome.
I mean, it's an incredible story, right? It all starts out as this tiny little kingdom. Then it evolves into a republic, famously run by the Senate and the people of Rome. And from there, wow, over hundreds of years of expansion, it just keeps growing. First, it conquers the entire Italian peninsula. Then it pushes out across North Africa, Western Europe, the Middle East, until it becomes the undisputed master of the Mediterranean. It all leads up to the Roman Empire, which, at its absolute peak in the 2nd century, was pretty much the center of the known Western world.
So here's the really crucial point. Rome did way more than just conquer stuff. It unified it. It brought a single set of laws, a shared Roman identity, and honestly, a period of stability that the region hadn't seen before. It laid the foundations for Western civilization as we know it. But as we all know, that kind of unity, it was never destined to last forever. Because, every empire eventually falls. And the collapse of Rome, it wasn't just the end of an era. For Italy specifically, it was the beginning of a 1,000-year-long age of total division.
And here's the date to remember: 476 AD. That's the year the last Western Roman emperor gets kicked off the throne by a Germanic chieftain. And just like that, poof, the central authority that had held the entire peninsula together for centuries, it just vanished. And what it left behind was this massive, gaping power vacuum.
And you know what rushes in to fill a vacuum like that? Absolute chaos. Seriously, just look at this list. The sheer variety of players on the field is mind-boggling. You've got Germanic tribes like the Ostrogoths and the Lombards moving in. You have the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Romans, trying to take back their old turf. Then there are the Franks under Charlemagne coming down from the north, Saracen raiders coming up from the south, even Norman mercenaries who show up and just decide to build their own kingdoms. And in the middle of all that, you have the Papal States and a whole swarm of fiercely independent city-states. It's a total free-for-all. And this comparison really just says it all, doesn't it? It's like night and day. That incredible stability of the Roman era, gone. Replaced by 1,000 years of nonstop conflict. Italy literally became this patchwork quilt of shifting borders and changing loyalties, a constant battleground for foreign armies and local rivals.
But here's the incredible paradox in all of this. Out of this total fragmentation, out of all that intense, constant rivalry, something absolutely extraordinary was born, and we call it the Renaissance.
Yeah, all that competition turned Italy into what one historian called the cockpit, the fighting point of Europe. A great phrase. But it also forged this very specific kind of genius. Think about it. With no single king or emperor calling all the shots, power was basically up for grabs. And these city-states, they didn't just compete with armies. Oh no, they competed with art, with architecture, with incredible new ideas. And this created a culture that celebrated ambitious individual talent. The nameless builder of the Middle Ages? He's gone. He's replaced by the famous, celebrated architect whose name we still know today.
This was the great age of patronage. You had these incredibly powerful merchant families, like the famous Medici in Florence. They used their massive wealth to pay for these magnificent projects. Why? Well, partly for civic pride, sure, but mostly it was to show up their rivals in other cities like Siena and Venice. It was a cycle, you see. Their power bought them incredible art, and that incredible art, in turn, cemented their power.
And you want a perfect example of this? Look no further than Filippo Brunelleschi's giant dome for the Florence Cathedral. I mean, this was a construction problem that nobody thought could be solved. But Brunelleschi, this genius,
comes up with all these brilliant innovations. First, he designs a revolutionary double-shell dome, a dome inside a dome for strength. Then, he invents a special ox-powered hoist to lift 70 million pounds of material up there. He uses this ingenious herringbone brick pattern inspired by the ancient Romans to stop the whole thing from collapsing under its own weight. And he tops it all off with these hidden iron chains, like invisible buttresses. It was an absolute masterpiece of engineering, born directly from that fierce Florentine ambition to be the best.
Okay, so after centuries of this, let's call it glorious division, the pendulum starts to swing back in the other direction. The 19th century rolls around, and with it comes this powerful new idea that maybe, just maybe, Italy should be one nation again. This whole movement got a name, the Risorgimento, which basically means the resurgence. It was inspired by new ideas from the Napoleonic era and this growing sense of a shared Italian identity. All these radicals and revolutionaries started dreaming of a single, unified Italy, one that was free from the foreign powers, like the Austrian Habsburgs and the Spanish Bourbons, who controlled huge chunks of the peninsula.
And every great struggle needs a hero, right? Well, the romantic hero of this one was, without a doubt, Giuseppe Garibaldi. This guy was a master of guerrilla warfare. He put together his iconic army of just 1,000 red shirts and launched this incredibly daring invasion of Sicily. From there, he marched his way up the peninsula, inspiring this massive popular uprising that was absolutely crucial for freeing southern Italy.
Now, this was a long and bloody road. It wasn't easy. After some failed revolutions back in 1848, the Kingdom of Italy was officially proclaimed in 1861, finally uniting the North and the South. But the puzzle wasn't complete. There were still key pieces missing. Venice was added to the kingdom in 1866, and then at last, in 1870, Italian troops captured Rome, made it the capital, and completed the Second Great Unification of Italy.
But here's the thing. Creating a country on a map is one thing. Forging a single, shared national identity, that's a whole other challenge. And the 20th century would test this brand new unity to its absolute limits. I mean, Italy was devastated by 2 world wars. It had to endure the dark 2-decade-long nightmare of Mussolini's fascist dictatorship. And after all of that, the nation had to completely reshape itself, getting rid of the monarchy to become the modern Italian republic we know today, back in 1946.
And all of that brings us right back to our big question. This incredible history, this legacy of deep-seated regional loyalties, this constant tug-of-war between unity and division, that's not just ancient history. It continues to shape Italy right now, today. So you have to wonder, after 1,000 years of being a mosaic of different kingdoms, can a truly unified identity ever fully overcome that powerful legacy of fragmentation? It's a fascinating question, and really, it's something to think about.